First story. OP's wife demands he cut ties with his female friend after she accidentally spilled wine on her wedding dress. So he asked Reddit, and Reddit knocked some sense into his head. Me and Ailey met through a mutual friend in 2012 during a pub quiz at university. I was quite attracted to her and actually told her so at the end of the evening. But she told me she had a boyfriend, even though she was flattered all the same. Fast forward 3 years later. I met Eliza at the Edinburgh Fringe, and we just clicked immediately. Politics, music, cinema, whatever the subject approached, there was a spark that I'd never felt with anyone else. She simply made sense to me. Her personality was just vivid. It's hard to describe, but I'll try. On first impression, she was so knowledgeable and enthusiastic that I was taken aback by her intensity. From that point on, we were inseparable, and I was dead certain of our future together long before we got engaged. Enter Ailey again. I started a new job at an advertising firm with a position in web design, and she was one of the only people I knew. At first, it was a little awkward given our history, especially considering that she was now married to the boyfriend she was dating back then. But there was no one else I knew at the firm, and we both had partners at this point, so it couldn't hurt to be friends, right? And to be honest, I'm glad because I feel like our chemistry as friends superseded any potential we might have had as a couple. She's clever and has a bit of a cheeky personality. I'm quite dry and sarcastic myself, so I reckon we have a pretty fun dynamic. Eliza doesn't seem to feel that way though. Sometimes, when it's been the three of us, she has expressed a feeling of being left out, or that Ailey has been making fun of her. I don't see it. It's just our dynamic. But there have been a couple of nights where Eliza's been in tears because of something that Ailey has said. One time Eliza got out of her seat, and Ailey sat down where she was sitting to show me a video on YouTube. When Eliza came back in, she saw Ailey leaning next to me and was upset for the rest of the night. Sometimes there have been times when Ailey has said something that Eliza has read as a come on. Like when I said I missed swimming because I felt out of shape, Ailey said, "The two of us should go together," with a playful punch. Eliza didn't say anything at the time, but her discomfort was visible. Things really came to a head at our wedding, and I think the stress of it really got to Eliza. During the reception, Ailey bumped into her, and red wine spilled all over her dress. She was bawling the entire evening. We're now on our honeymoon, and Eliza has said she hopes for a fresh start, but she feels like Ailey might have spilled her wine on purpose. She's suggesting that I cut ties with her, and if I'm honest, I'm not so sure I want to. Where do I go from here? My wife is getting increasingly insecure about my best friend, to the point where she wants us to cut contact. She says that it feels like she's treating her poorly. I'm at a loss for what to do. Relevant comments and additional information. Noye, thanks. The number of times I've bumped into someone and spilled my drink on them is exactly once in my entire life. And I was a SHT-faced teenager. You are either astoundingly naive or Allie is somehow the unluckiest woman in the world to accidentally spill her red wine on the bride on her wedding day. I think you know which one is more likely. Your wife won't stay your wife for much longer, unless you start actually listening to her and stop dismissing all of her fears as baseless insecurities. OP. Ailey was getting a drink from the bar. Eliza had taken off part of her gown for dining and dancing purposes, and was leaving our bedroom to return to our table. They bumped into each other, and Eliza had a huge red stain on her dress. Ailey made an offhand joke and fled, and Eliza ran up to me in bits and pieces. It sounded really bad when Eliza told me, and she was in bits about the wine spilling all over her dress, and I went to Ailey and asked her what the hell she was up to. Ailey was so mortified and told me she wanted to sink into a hole. She's dyspraxic and has struggled with falling at impromptu moments. I've actually witnessed it happen before. There was a meeting at work, and she got our colleagues coffee. The moment she came in, she tripped and fell, coffee flying everywhere. Rip dirtbag. Allie bumped into your wife in her wedding dress, spilling wine all over it, and made an offhand joke before fleeing. What kind of response is that, OP? She's a really awkward person, and doesn't know how to interact with people sometimes. There have been times I have been upset with her, because of how glib she's been about personal issues. Starvaliant. So someone who has a habit of accidentally saying or doing things that make your wife cry accidentally also managed to spill red wine over her white dress on the biggest day of her life. And you don't think that's at all suspicious? If you knew, and imagine here that you somehow knew for certain that she'd done it on purpose, what would your reaction be? Would it change how you thought about her? Give it some thought. OP. I would be really hurt if Ailey was doing it on purpose. I love Eliza and want us to be happy, and I can see that I've really messed up here multiple times. Ailey is a good friend, but if she's deliberately being a wind-up merchant and harming my marriage, Then I'll have to cut the cord and stop chumming up to her so much. Eliza sometimes says to me that she can intuit people's opinions and feelings within minutes of meeting them. I've never been like that. My folks have always said that I'm terrible at picking up on basic things. I was at an aunt's house when I was a kid, talking her ear off, and she said, "Oh, it's getting late," multiple times. It was only until my mom dragged me out that I picked up that she wanted me to leave. Symbol Farron. It really sounds like you're putting your friend first. No wonder your wife is unhappy. She comes back in tears from hanging out, and you still invite Ailey to the wedding. What was that conversation like? OP. She got really upset one time during banter, because me and Ailey like to roast each other regularly, and Ailey roasted her a little too hard, I guess. We were singling out things to insult each other on, and the subject went to Eliza, and Eliza mentioned that she had webbed feet. Since then, Ailey's called her leapfrog. When I say it, Eliza takes it in good stride. But when Ailey says it, it's this massive problem. I don't get it. Eliza has suggested that Ailey's being serious when she says it as opposed to when I do. But she roasts me the same way too. She said I looked like a juggalo's poodle that day because I was wearing baggy, metal clothes and hadn't styled my hair, so it was frizzing all over the place. Secret Beans 1E367. Why haven't you stuck up for your wife all those times Ailey has hurt her? OP. I guess because I didn't know that I needed to. It seems like it's a perspective thing. Eliza is a passionate person who cries at deluxe puppy advertisements, and the intensity is great for a partner, but it can cause problems with friendships. She reads a lot into things her friends do, thinking they're intentional, and when she talks to them about what they did, they will be completely shocked and unaware that they hurt her. Ailey is a very sarcastic person in general who rolls with the punches, and to me, it reads like they struggle to gel, rather than intentional cruelty on Ailey's part. But for what it's worth, Ailey has told me that she's really keen on Eliza and thinks she's a top girl. Update. I am posting this here because it keeps getting deleted on relationship advice. You know, I posted here recently looking for guidance on how to deal with my wife's anxiety and hurt revolving around my friend. And it seems like I read the riot act, probably rightly so. I have been completely inconsiderate of Eliza's feelings and how she feels about these roastings. And you alerted me to the possibility that Ailey is doing this just to be a little SHT. I sat down with Eliza, and we had an in-depth conversation about the wedding incident. I got her to describe the event step by step in her own words. I was leaving the lobby into the dining venue, and Ailey was a little tipsy at this point and already stumbling from the bar. She was initially walking slower, but seemed to speed up when she saw me. We collided with each other, and she pulled an ashamed face and made a joke about me looking like Rosamund Pike in Gone Girl before scurrying away. She seemed embarrassed at the moment, but she didn't apologize to me. I heard from other people that she was appalled about what happened, but I never heard anything from her directly. It just paints a picture of habitual microaggressions from her that have festered into this ugly anxiety whenever she's around. I pretty much predict that whenever I'm in her vicinity, there will be weird behavior or uncomfortable comments, and I don't want to continue being in a situation where my husband brings someone into my home who resents me simply for existing. That was a real gut punch for me. For me, it always felt like it was just insecurity about me fancying Ailey 10 minutes ago. But Eliza is really torn up about this. She said that the honeymoon has been miserable because the memory has been swirling around in her mind, and she feels like I'm going to downplay or dismiss it. No one should feel like they can't just be themselves, especially not at home. I didn't realize what a SHT head I'd been, and I apologized profusely to Eliza and decided to call up Ailey to confront her about the wedding incident. So I did, and it didn't go well. Basically, I told her that Eliza was really hurt by the wedding dress incident, that she had been hurt by her behavior for a long time, and that if she couldn't bring herself to apologize to Eliza's face, at least she should pay towards getting the stain removed. And if she couldn't bring herself to even do that, then our friendship had to stop. To say that Ailey was taken aback would be an understatement. She was completely blindsided, asking what was wrong with their interactions that made me want to go to such extremes. I mentioned the leapfrog comment, and she went, "But even you call her that," stating that Eliza called her Garfield because of her weight and bright orange hair. When I mentioned that she ran towards Eliza and didn't apologize for spilling wine on her, she got really upset and started shouting that she wasn't running at her to hurl wine at her dress. She was running from her because she didn't want to talk at that moment because she felt like Eliza hated her and didn't know how to go about it. She started pointing out times when Eliza had been funny towards her, and I basically said, "Right, but this isn't about when Eliza has hurt you. This is about when you've hurt Eliza, and it's got so bad that it needs to be talked about." And she started laughing. It was really uncomfortable. I know she does this when she's anxious about something. Eliza asked me if things were okay in the other room, and Ailey demanded if this was set up. And when I tried to explain myself, she hung up. Her husband even called me, insisting that he would pay for the damage if it was less stressful for me. I told Ewan husband that I appreciated that, but I needed to know where Ailey stood regarding what I just said. Ewan told me that Ailey makes jokes whenever she's anxious or uncomfortable, and that they've wrote about it in the past. But the wedding dress incident is a major issue, and that he wants to smooth things over as much as I do. So he and Ailey will pay for dry cleaning, while a condolence hamper is sent to Eliza. Eliza was relieved that Ewan was so understanding, but she wasn't thrilled about Ailey's reaction. She basically said that the Garfield comment was always about her hair and never about her weight, and that she was deliberately trying to make it seem like the bad behavior went both ways. I don't think it's gone both ways either, because I've never noticed Eliza roasting Ailey in any real way. Eliza has suggested we try marriage counseling. I was a bit shocked at first because we've only been married for a month, but I decided maybe that's the way forward, because if Eliza reckons that we need counseling for it, then it's clearly a problem. So yeah, me and Eliza are going to try marriage counseling, and my future with Ailey is uncertain. Update 2. So after the rightly deserved bollocking you gave me in the last post, you'll be happy to learn that Ailey and me aren't talking anymore, and it's probably for the best. Eliza and I received the condolence hamper in the mail, and it was primarily soaps. Not in the sense of fragrant body lotions, luxury packages, or even organic bars, just regular, run-of-the-mill soaps. There were 2 dispensers that were faintly rose-scented, but they were so mild you had to really look for them. There were several white soap bars that didn't smell of anything. Really, it was so confusing. The only items that suggested it was a proper gift basket were a £1.6 bottle of Chardonnay and a box of Rose's chocolates that looked a fair deal more effort than the cleaning equipment at the nearest pub. The weirdest item, though, a pair of women's underpants. Not lingerie, not anything lacy or risque-like, just a plain pair of white pants. They were actually kind of grubby. There was a faint orange lining on them. It just didn't make sense to me because if they were meant to be for Eliza, they were at least 6 sizes too big. And if Ailey really was making a move on me, they were again around 6 sizes too big. Also, why would she choose such disgusting pants to try and seduce me? It weirded me out so much that I rang up Ailey, asking why I had soap and grubby knickers in our condolences hamper. She kept making dry remarks to her husband about there being a strange noise on the other end of the phone. I didn't get anywhere with her and insisted that Ewan talk to me instead, because getting anywhere with her was like pulling teeth at this rate. After some disgruntled remarks, she passed the phone over. Ewan asked what was up, and I explained the whole situation. He was momentarily surprised when I described the hamper as looking like the luggage of a janitor that lived under a bridge. He said that it was a small package, but there should have been several luxury gifts that weren't simply sanitary items. Apparently, there was a bottle of Chardonnay, a bottle of Shiraz, 1 box of Rose chocolates, a Lindt bar, a selection of crackers, and some assorted cheeses. Somehow that got replaced with leftover soaps bought in bulk in his Y fronts, which Ailey found ever so hilarious and apparently found ever so hilarious to send to my wife. He was hugely apologetic and embarrassed, stating that he'd pay us the cost of the lost items. I was raging at this point, but I tried to be collected and said, "Right, let me talk to Ailey again, please," and he got her on the line. I told her that she had the chance to make it right, and she blew it, and she groaned and told me that Eliza's jealousy had crippled our friendship, and she was sick of having to flatter her insecurities. I said no, you are Eliza's insecurities, and we rode for a bit. Eventually, it ended with me saying that this had been building up for a while, and that her attitude had been giving Eliza grief for years. Ailey said, none of this would be happening if Eliza knew how to take a joke. And I just told her that a joke isn't ruining her wedding dress, and then sending her your husband's stinky Y-fronts. She said I sold out my principles for a girl who's threatened by other women. After the phone call, Eliza was not so hurt, as she was confused at first because she was wondering if there was a mix-up, until I explained to her the joke. She seemed pretty much resigned to the idea that Ailey would always be at SHT, and I told her the likelihood of that happening was very slim considering she'd cut me off for standing up for her. I think the counseling has made us stronger, and in a weird way, I'm glad this happened. Because if your friendship falls apart the moment you try to protect your loved ones, then they probably weren't that strong of friendships at all. Shame. I won't be speaking to Ewan from now on. He's a top lad. Relevant comments. Materials Cellist. I just hope you finally feel stupid, apologize, and make amends with your wife. How the F didn't you know your friend was bullying your wife is beyond me. OP. I have apologized to Eliza multiple times. I should have been more assertive with Ailey and told her to cut her SHT out then. I'm aware that this is entirely on me for being permissive towards someone who is really just being a bully towards my wife. I'm trying to do better. Mix it meat. I'm glad you're seeing the light. But why were you permissive before? Why was it only now that you finally believed her and confronted Ailey? Did you like the attention? Was it easier to dismiss your wife's concerns as being petty over a crush than to critically consider her feelings and the situation? Also, don't you still work with Ailey, OP? I think it was because I saw it as lost in translation, like it was something that worked with me and Ailey, but didn't with her, and assumed that she would figure that it was the sort of banter we encouraged and join in at some point. Eliza's from a very sincere, straightforward family that says what it means and doesn't necessarily make jokes like I do. The whole idea would be lost on them, and they would be really confused and upset, thinking that we were actually insulting each other. Eliza's brother nearly jumped me once just because I said, "That's plenty," when she was rambling on a little "That's a still game" reference for the transatlantic pals across the world. I like it when she rambles. I think it's cute, and it's a running joke between us, but he found it so personally offensive, like he thought that I was just telling her to put a sock in it, and he started ranting at me for disrespecting his sister like that. Eliza started hiding her face in shame. It was that extreme a reaction. I think I should have been paying more attention. Eliza told me that when she's tried to chat with her, Ailey's just been like, "I don't do small talk," and they've sat in complete silence. Apparently, when she tried to chat at another time, she was totally noncommittal and yawned so loudly that it woke up our dog. I only found this out recently because Eliza didn't want to inconvenience me, and I feel so ashamed of my behavior. I felt like there were just crossed wires. But Ailey really was bullying Eliza and finding creative ways to essentially make her uncomfortable and squeeze her out of our dynamic. I don't know why or how she thought any of that was appropriate, but it's irrelevant, as my wife should never be scared of telling me how she really feels. Yeah, I work with Ailey. That is a complication that I hadn't considered. I wouldn't worry about her causing drama in the workplace because she values her job greatly, but I wouldn't be surprised about some passive, aggressive attitude being thrown my way. Oh well, I guess I'll have to wait and see what happens, but I'm uninterested in any form of reconciliation if she's going to be that disrespectful. Additional information from the OP. The reason that Ailey is out of my life is because I raised the point in the first place. That's more to do with her than me or my passivity. And yeah, I'm aware it was a problem. You're damn right, it was a problem. But it feels like even when I'm trying to right the wrong, I'm getting a finger wagging really. I don't mind criticism, but at this point, it feels a bit like I'm getting blows for new reasons. I didn't pick up on Ailey's SHDTY behavior before. I felt like it was crossed wires at first. But the reason she isn't talking to me is because I told her off for treating Eliza like SHT to begin with. I should have done it long ago. I acknowledge that. But let's not start fantasizing about a future where I'll just welcome her back in with open arms for treating my wife like that. It's not going to happen because I want a future with Eliza much more than I want a pal to have lunch with. I've messed up. I know I have, and I want to change it. Let's just move forward. OP when asked if the underwear was his. I didn't. I stopped liking Ailey in 2012 after she said she was taken. I didn't sleep with her, and I don't really care for that kind of speculation. It's just untrue and adds more fuel to the fire. People come across this stuff, and it just exacerbates problems. Eliza came across one of the videos about my post on YouTube or TikTok, and it stirred up a lot of painful feelings, especially reading about your reactions. She was shocked that I sought online advice because I usually try to handle things by myself. She was more shocked by the comments, which were overwhelmingly on her side. It helped her acknowledge how SHTTY and awful everything done to her had been, and we had a long talk about it. I've agreed not to talk to Ailey, as she is clearly only interested in causing trouble with a cheap laugh. I mentioned the situation to HR, even the stinky underpants, and they said they'd speak to her and keep an eye on any potential developments, but so far no trouble. As far as I know, Ailey's been having lunch with another colleague, and I now go down to a neighboring cafe to grab a baked potato. Whenever I've been in her vicinity, she's just mumbled, "All right." So I'm guessing there were some words between her and OP on how his wife is doing. She's doing well. So far, so good. We had a really successful couples counseling session, and it opened my eyes to so much of my behavior, and how I was essentially permitting bad behavior for so long. I realized that it was because investing in something emotionally heavy, or even just a problem, makes me really anxious, so I try to distance myself from conflict. It used to be that whenever my relatives fought, they would sort of figuratively pull at me like a rag doll into taking their side, and that behavior upset me so much that any sort of conflict was off-putting to me. But I realized that when I essentially do that, I leave problems completely unsolved and cause my loved ones pain due to my own anxieties. So if someone is mistreating someone I love, I'm not in their corner like I should be. A big part of these counseling sessions is figuring out how to manage accountability and not just being like, oh, it's my childhood, blah, 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 and stepping up the mantle into making things right. Me and Eliza now do daily check-ins like, how are you feeling today? How are you managing that? Is there anything you're not happy about? And what can be done to help you? So far, it's been really helpful, as she seems to be in much better spirits. And we've been having date nights again, which is great. Aside from the occasional disagreement, things have genuinely improved. As for Ailey, well, things haven't changed much, but luckily the work situation has been tolerable. I'm surprised at how much I like eating outside of work, to be honest. I can't stand the canteens. The food is SHT. Second story. OP knocked her daughter's boyfriend unconscious after seeing bruises on his daughter. Hello, people of Reddit. This is my very first time on Reddit, but I have heard that you can get good advice from strangers. I'm sorry if my writing is horrible, so please bear with me. I will do my best here. My situation happened 2 weeks ago. I have been a single parent for the past 15 years. My wife passed away from cancer when our daughter was 7. She is now 22 years old. It was a difficult journey, and I faced a lot of hardships in raising her. I have no plans to remarry, so all I have left in my life is my daughter. We will call her Liz. Liz and I are close, but she does tend to hide things from me very often. Minor stuff like boys and stuff. I understand that it's normal and have told her so. I have met a few boyfriends throughout the years, so it is not like she doesn't trust me. I have asked her not to be afraid to introduce me to any boyfriend, and I have reassured her that I will always be there for her. She does talk a lot about her relationships with me, so thankfully I do get updated on them myself. She moved out of the house when she was 20 and has since lived alone. I visit quite often and help her with whatever she needs. Recently though, she started seeing this guy she met at the bar. I think his name was John, but I'm not so sure. Since they started dating, she hasn't allowed me to go visit her all that often, and usually when she does, she makes me tell her days in advance. I thought it was only because she was growing up and was advancing in her relationship. I have met John on a few occasions, and to be honest, I did not like him. I had no evidence that supported my feelings towards him, but I just did not like him. I have asked her about how she's doing and how John's doing, and she has been hesitant to tell me anything. She would prefer not to talk about it and would switch the subject. When I invited her out to eat, it took a lot of persuasion. Whenever I have seen her, she always wears clothing that covers most of her body and has a lot of makeup on. She had never worn makeup before, so it struck me as odd, but she brushed it off. When I asked her about John, she would get defensive and invasive about it. It was almost like she was scared of him. Recently, I have seen new bruises appear on her arm and neck area. She has tried to cover them up, but I've noticed them. I have asked her about them and how she got them, and she would give those cliché excuses. Oh, at work, I hit myself on something, or I fell while biking. I was not born yesterday, and I immediately found it suspicious and called her out on it. She got angry and told me to let it go and not worry about it. I suspected that John was responsible. Ever since he came into her life, she has changed, and now I am certain that he puts her hands on her. 2 weeks ago, I paid her a surprise visit at her home, and to no surprise, it was John who answered the door. I let myself in and asked him where Liz was. She came out of her room and was shocked to see me. She wasn't covered up with 20 layers, so I got to see everything. Every bruise, every handprint mark on her body. I was horrified that my suspicions were true, and before I knew it, I lost my self-composure and laid hands on John. I am not proud of it. I threw John out of her apartment. She was angry at me, and through her tears, she was telling me she told me not to worry about it, and that I should have left it alone, that everything was fine, etc. She was making me feel like I was the bad guy. She told me to get out. Before I left, I again reassured her that I would always be her father and whatnot. It has been 2 weeks, and each time I've tried to reach out to her, she has been distant with me and has denied any invitation to dinner with me. I made sure that John was not coming over anymore, and she confirmed that she had left him, but that she still did not want to see me. I do not think I did anything wrong, but I feel like I somehow messed up. So Ada comments, Mondashawan. It sounds like he still has a hold over her. Trust me, he is talking to her at the very least, whispering his poison in her ear. I hope she can resist. She needs time away from him, and no contact to break the spell, and see him for what he is, NTA. Pasajimio NTA. It's what I would have done too. You make a decent dad. Environmental Run 528. If it were my child, this guy would go missing. Update. 1 day later. Hello everybody. It has been a while. Well, not exactly, but so much has happened over the last few hours. I'm sorry I haven't responded to anyone, but I have made sure to read every comment. I cannot thank you guys enough. You guys saved my daughter by giving me the push and the advice to act. Many of you have said that she is most likely still in touch with him, and that would explain why she has been distant from me. I did not want to imagine that, but you guys have the right sort of explanation, and I will explain everything. Like I said in my earlier post, I have been checking up on her, making sure John wasn't around. Well, after reading many comments, I decided that maybe I should man up and go talk to my daughter about what happened. I decided to call sick to work today and wanted to go spend that day with my daughter. I did not tell her in advance. I wanted it to be a surprise. No, I'm sorry. I wanted to see if that filthy effing animal was there and did not want her to give him a heads up. Just like you guys said, he might still be around. I decided to head to her place early. I picked up some flowers and her favorite snacks. As I was walking up the stairs to her apartment room, I heard loud screaming and banging. I would be lying if I told you guys that it didn't make my skin crawl. I was praying that it wasn't him and that my daughter was okay. My mind and heart were racing. When I made it to her floor, I saw him. He was banging on the door, trying to get in, and screaming to be let in. At that moment, I felt as if the world had frozen. It is hard to explain, but I felt a moment of calm and clarity. I'm not sure if I am explaining it well, but it doesn't matter. I dropped the flowers and the snacks on the floor and made my way towards him. He was too busy being an absolute waste of a man to notice me. I swear to everyone who will read this. I swung at him so hard that I broke not only his nose, but maybe some of my fingers as well. I'm too old to be fighting. My hand is swollen. I did not stop swinging at him, not even when he fell unconscious or when he hit the floor. I was ready to beat that man to death. The only reason I stopped was because my daughter pulled me off of him. It turns out that she was watching him through the door peephole thing. This time, she did not scream at me. She did not cuss me out. She hugged me. I could hear her muffled cries. I kind of cried myself, but pulled myself together and told her to pack what was most important to her, that she would be staying with me until everything was resolved. She silently went back into her home and started to pack. I could not believe it, but the mother effer was still alive and starting to get up. I grabbed him and told him that if I ever saw him again, I would beat him to death. To never effing show his face again and to leave my daughter the F alone. He simply nodded, and I tossed him aside. It took Liz a while, but she eventually came out with a small suitcase, and we headed back to my home. SHT, now that I typed this out, I forgot about her flowers and snacks back at the apartment. She is now safe under my roof once again, and I cannot thank everyone enough. I would have never imagined it would turn out this way, but I thank God that it did. I do not want to imagine what might have happened if I had not chosen to show up or not taken any of your guys' advice. At the moment, she is doing fine and is cooking me my favorite meal while I sit on the porch, drinking beer and typing this out. I will lawyer up because I did F up that kid pretty badly, and I'm not stupid enough to believe that I won't hear a knock on my door soon. I'm so thankful and glad that I asked you guys. I will update you guys if I do not end up in jail or something. For now, I am only looking forward to eating some effing steak and being with my daughter. I love you guys. Say goodbye for now. Comments. Triarchal. I would hug you if I could. Also, so very dad to suddenly remember snacks and flowers. Good job. You are a top-notch parent, and she will never forget this. I am 46, and my dad is still a superhero in my eyes because of something like this. Never be afraid to burn the world for your kids. OP. I wish my wife was here to taste my daughter's cooking. She might have had some competition. Tracy Ann 12. I'm happy that she's safe. Just as a precaution, if he goes to the cops to file a complaint about what you did, make sure that they know it was done in defense of your daughter, after he was the one physically and emotionally abusing her. Indigo Joyglow. Actually, John swung on him first. I saw it all. I swear, Your Honor, it's the truth. Thank you for watching the video. If you are interested in listening to these kinds of stories, we've got more in store for you. Simply subscribe to our channel, hit the like button, and share it with your friends.